you doing? This might be a long one. Or maybe it won't. I don't know. I can't really tell time. But about 3 months ago, I found myself at the morgue, standing over the body on an autopsy table. I couldn't help but think that she looked familiar. She couldn't have been older than 20 or 21. The coroner said the death cause was an animal attack, most likely a wolf or a coyote. Time of death was about 4 days prior to that. The woman's body had been found in the morning by a fisherman, local guy, washed up on the banks of the Maroon River. This was the 12th girl that had washed up in the last 6 years. Every single one of them had the markings of an animal bite. I left the morgue and I headed back to the office to ponder my case. You know, over a glass of Dewars. That's when I do my best drinking. Thinking. Sitting at my desk with a glass in my hand, I couldn't help but stare at the crime scene photos. I fucking knew this girl from somewhere, but I couldn't quite place her. I took another look at the photo, a closer look, and I noticed the animal bites on the side looked more like small bites from a shark rather than a wolf. But there haven't been any freshwater sharks in the Maroon River in 50 years. Not since Clifton Technology started dumping chemical waste, into the river, started turning it red, hence the name. I took another glance at the autopsy just one more fucking time. That's when it hit me. God damn it. I knew this girl. Her name was Madeline Gauch. She was a pretty local famous new model. She was actually the centerfold for Maintain magazine. She was even on the cover twice. Maintain magazine, it's like the Playboy for Deadlock. I don't think they run the magazine anymore. I think it's all online. Honestly, I gotta check that out. I'll get back to you on that. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. She also happened to be the daughter of Dr. Robert Gauch. He was also pretty famous. He was a geneticist with a real god complex. A real mad scientist type. He hung himself years ago after being arrested for trying to splice animal and human genes together. After his suicide, rumors floated around that he was even trying to inject mutated genes into his pregnant wife. But her and the baby supposedly died at birth. I had a sneaking suspicion that Madeline wasn't just a random victim. Her death had something to do with the twisted bullshit experiments of her father. So I dove headfirst into the dark history of Dr. Feelgood. Dr. Gauch. Tracing his experiments with genetic mutation and his obsession with crossing boundaries between human and animal DNA. It became pretty clear, pretty fucking fast, that his experiments didn't die with him. So, I went to Dr. Jackass's house in search of more evidence as to why these attacks were happening. I got to his house. It looked abandoned, so I just walked in. It was empty and eerily quiet. As I wandered through the house, I came upon a door in the kitchen with a padlock. I don't have a fucking key, so I kicked the damn thing in. I realized there was an entry to the basement. As I walked down the stairs into the basement, I instantly noticed the smell of blood. It was all over the floor, mixed in with the water that had been poured out of some rectangle tub that was hanging out against the basement wall. It had to be around 6 foot long, maybe 3 foot tall. As I looked around the room, I saw a table of jars and chemicals and odd specimens. Shit that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. It was like Frankenstein's workshop in there. As I approached the tub, I noticed a large tube leading from the end of the tub, going through a stone wall with a lever near the wall. It was a vacuum system leading to the Maroon River. Anything in the tube could easily be sucked into the river at any time. As I was looking at the lever, I heard what sounded like the grungy voice of a little boy come from behind a couple of stacked boxes. He asked me who I was, but before I could even respond, this creature came from behind the boxes. "What the fuck?" I shouted. "What the fuck?" I was a little shocked, maybe a little scared, don't tell nobody. But he was a 4 foot tall, black eyes, arms covered in gray scales, going from his hands to his shoulders. He had gills on each side of his rib cage and claws that looked like they were protruding out of his fingers. His teeth were sharp and pointy as fuck. As I approached him, he blurted out that he didn't mean to do it, and that he was just hungry. So I asked him what he was talking about. He told me that he was the son of Dr. Frankenfuck, and that Madeline had been kidnapping girls to feed him, because he could only eat human meat. 4 days before Madeline's washed up body, he had accidentally turned on his sister and attacked her out of pure uncontrollable hunger. He then flushed the body through the same tube that she had used to get rid of the bodies that she was feeding to him. After telling me everything, he asked what the fuck I was gonna do. I just looked at him for a minute. Then I took a step back. I nodded towards the tub. Without saying a word, he smiled with all his sharp-ass teeth. And then he ran over, jumped into the tub, pulled the lever, and flushed himself into the Maroon River. I stood there for another second, then continued up the basement stairs, out to my car. I sat in the car and stared at the house for a minute. Then I drove home, poured myself a drink, and went the fuck to bed. Bodies still wash up on the riverbank from time to time. Unsolved, of course. I visit the river every now and then. I've seen him a couple times. I toss him a chicken, he nods, then he smiles, then he disappears. What do you want me to do? He's a kid. I'll see you around.